In this video, we're going to dive into the use of ComfyUI, free AI tools to generate some design alternative effortless. Imagine working on a project in Revit or in Grasshopper and Rhino, and you nail the layout, you figured out the concept, you discuss it with the clients, and it's all good to go. There's one more thing you want to look at is, did I make the right choice? Did I change the right material? So in this video, we're gonna use AI to actually question those things. So from that Revit, like, can we just change some of the volume? Can we update some of the form to actually enhance the design? How we could link Revit model to ComfyUI, and how we can just sort of merge together into like a project to be able to generate some interesting images. Those images could be used later on to actually produce the final results, but that's the purpose for another video. Alright, so here I have my Revit model. So this is sort of the villa I was working on. This is a project I was just working on. So very simple and basic. I have my bedroom upstairs, and I have a living room, kitchen downstairs. I didn't model much at this stage, and then I had a bit of a balustrade, a couple of stairs to accommodate the landscape and the slope of the site, and then sort of terracing to accommodate the swimming pool. So this is sort of like quite an interesting project. So you get to the stage where you sort of have the openings you like, sort of, I like the louvers, so it's, for the context, is subtropical context, so it's in Australia, Gold Coast, so South Queensland, so very tropical climate. So had like some large openings, also like some balconies to provide some shade, and a lot of openings actually, and then the swimming pool. So again, it can be any Revit file. The important thing is to have a file where you get to. And let's say, for example, you're there and you're like, well, I like this, but I'm not too sure yet what I want, and I feel like I'm just at this stage where I feel like I need to brainstorm and get some ideas, and maybe like sort of jump into a daytime magazine or architecture magazine and start sort of a benchmark and get some ideas, eventually going to Pinterest and collect some ideas. This is something like you usually do. And what I'm testing here as a process for an architecture process is really to have a look at this and just say, what if we use AI at this stage? So I'm just gonna open it, and I'm just gonna go through, and we're just gonna open ComfyUI. So while it's opening, just gonna show you. So I have my 3D here. Isometric, very ugly, very hard to work with, very different from Rhino. I really found it really challenging to design and work with this isometric view, but this is sort of the default in Revit. And here there's a 3D view that I tend to do, and then finally my perspective view. Nothing fancy about this perspective view. Projection, just perspective, not orthographic, and and then I just rotate it around and sort of adjust the point of view, and then I'm just saying like, okay, I want to generate an image in ComfyUI from that point of view, for example. So what I need to do is I need to open the script that I designed. So this is the script I will be sharing with my Patreon. There's a couple of additional things that I will not probably talk about in this video, but most of this part here is also in the video. I'll put the link, and I'll put the link on the video up there in the corner, so you can refer back to it, where I have a video where I run through each of those components one by one. I'm not going to do that in this one again. But it's basically, you know, I'm using Flux Dev Q8. I have the VAE. That's the basic. That's the usual VAE you use for Flux. And then I have a clip encoder for my prompts. Those ones are also fairly basic and fairly common. My latent image, so just the format of my image. I want something horizontal this time. And then for the ControlNet, it's just the ControlNet union. I'll put all the links to all the models in the description below. But you know, if you want a rundown to exactly what's happening in there, I recommend you to watch the other video I have done previously. Here's the, you know, the depth. So I just focus on the depths. Here is depth anything V2 VITL, and then a resolution of 1344. And then I have another ControlNet with Canny that I'm just gonna turn off for now and do some tests without it. And yeah, segment doesn't exist. I haven't done with segment station. And then here's just a couple of settings. So you know, you can pause this video and follow the settings if you want. What's important in this is really like sort of setting I use for depth. So here's 0.6 for the strengths, and then start at 0 and at 0.3. And then my decoder, and then I save my image. So what's interesting here, and I'm not gonna run through too much, but basically what I've done is I used a render I've done with Twinmotion. That's a rendering, an image I've done in Twinmotion that capture exactly, you know, my Revit model with a very similar sort of view. And then I run Florence so Florence is a LLM that is able to sort of recognize the image and give me a prompt from that image. So very interesting process. You can have it within ComfyUI, so you can use ChatGPT, but this one is running locally and is free, so this can be quite helpful. But I wasn't super happy with what comes out. Very generic. Like, I think when we work in architecture, we have our own vocabulary, we have our own terms, and I feel those LLM are quite generic, so I wasn't really happy with it. But you know, there's some info here. Two-story building, white exterior, yeah, wooden balcony, not quite there. Building is surrounded by lush lawn, palm trees, and tropical plants, so that's quite inspiring. And there is a swimming pool at the front. So it done a quite good job on sort of capturing the essence of the image, and also that you recognize that it's a 3D rendering. And then I've done the same process with actually a reference I found. I think this one was on Pinterest, and then it's just sort of like I just wanted to see where is it? Just wanted to see what would the LLM, how would they describe it, because I like the feel of it, like the curtains flying in the wind. I like the windows and then the timber frame around the windows. So I like the, you know, the louvers here. That's quite inspiring, and that's, to be honest, this also inspired me for this design to a certain extent. And I like the feel of it. So what I've done is I just run Florence on this one as well, and then it just gave me this prompt, and basically these two prompts sort of give me a bit of an idea to write my own prompt. So I'll just select some of the idea here. You know, wooden panel, windows are made of glass. Yeah, okay, cool. But you know, there are like some things, so I just wanted to check and see if there were some interesting stuff in there. And then I wrote a first prompt that was okay. And then I wrote a second one that I prefer. And then again, you know, this is sort of iteration through iteration. You can refine it as you go. So here, to get this image, you can pause on the video and have a read through. But it's basically, you know, photography, architecture, hillside to talk about the topography, tropical tree and plants around the house, in the middle of a tropical forest in the background and beyond, house and a swimming pool in the front, and then a stone wall. So I wanted a stone wall at the base of the swimming pool in front of it, and a stone wall. Exterior of the house is made of concrete, so multiple level, with floor-to-floor windows. So that's, again, that's the terminology, architectural terminology, but just say I like to go from floor to floor. Full height windows, basically, doors and balcony. Windows are arranged in symmetrical pattern. I'm not fully convinced by this part, but and then depth and dimension. The balcony are made of concrete. The balustrade is brushed aluminium. So see, I start to go into sort of detail that I put in Revit that I experimented and I liked. There's another balustrade I really love, but it's not quite this one, but this one is alright. And then anyway, just I go on, and then finally here, artificial light. So just like sort of, you know, the overall vibe. So artificial light from inside, super reflective glass, retrofuturistic style, early morning shot. So that's sort of the time of the day, overcast, diffuse light, and then a bit of a photography, and then a long exposure. Those ones are inspired by other AI creator. So credit to them, and I just sort of like mix and match those ones. This part is something a bit different, so we're not going to talk about this part. And then here, basically, yeah, as I say, I have my ControlNet just for depth, and then I also have my Canny here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to show you that I have the Canny and I have the depth, and they are like one after the other. I have this conditioning here that actually is plugged to this one, and basically this one is also going to there to the positive prompt. So we sort of like, if I turn that off, it will only take the depth. If I turn that on, it will go through the Canny as well. Here's the strength, so 0.6 in terms of strength. And I also sort of, I don't run it through the whole process. I stop at 0.3. I don't want to do it like all the way to 1. So I kept my ControlNet pretty loose on that front, because I found if you go all the way to 1, it influences too much the model, and then it loses some of the creativity, I guess, that I'm looking for through that process. So I'm just gonna right click and bypass those ones. And let's get into it. So the first step you want to do is similar to the video I've done with in Paris. I have my screen sharing here. So all what I have to do is I'm just gonna share screen. So I click on this one. So this one is from MixLab. So have a look at the video. I go through exactly the plugins you need. I also put a list in the description below, in the video below, so you should be able to access it. And then here I select my window and I will select Revit. And I have my Revit model, and this is it. So now I got here on my canvas, I have this Revit model. So I'm just gonna go around and just select the view I want. So I want something a bit more like sort of frontal elevation, but frontal perspective elevation. I want to see a bit of the pool, and then I want to see sort of the context a bit around, so it gives me some space to play. And then here I'm going to set my area. I click on this one and I select my area. I don't like the cube because the cube might pop up, so I'm just going to reduce it a bit. Yeah, like this. Okay, and now I'm pretty happy with it, and now I'm just gonna run Q, and let's see what's happening. So again, try to not move your Revit like around, because it needs to recognize it. So here we go. So we just, the process is going. Just gonna reduce. Okay, so you got the that's the depth here. So you can see the depth is actually quite good. It almost recognizes, you know, the steps and then the volume. But again, I don't tell him. I like to say him, you know, it's like I'm talking about a person when I'm talking about AI. So in all my video, I'm talking about he. I think mostly about he. Maybe a she. Maybe I should change it to a she. But anyway, the point is like the pool could be here. Or it could be down here. I didn't really specify. I don't have a segmentation that tells you or tells her or tells him where is my swimming pool. So it only depth and then we'll see what comes up. Okay, so you can see it got sort of got, I'm just gonna run it while we're talking about it. It got the wall, the stone wall quite well, but it's just sort of like the concrete is very rammed down. Balustrade is not convincing. And then see how it start adding some elements as well. So this is sort of where the strengths here could be interesting. So you could reduce the strengths a bit. We can have a look at the next one. One thing that it captured quite well is actually the slope. So really similar to what we had in Revit. So we can see here slope going down. So I think that's actually quite convincing. The steps are not quite there yet. And then again, you know, like this sort of like, you know, a lot of watermarks on the concrete. And then, but the context looks pretty good. And again, I'm going to do another video very soon about how to upscale that image so you could put it in your presentation. I found an amazing 4K, 4x upscaler that is very, very impressive. So you could potentially do that on all image. Whoa, okay. Very different style. Not too sure I'm convinced about this one. It got sort of the, you know, the king had here. They just removed the wall here and then it just kept one of the glazing there. So again, it's working with the depth, so it might not capture all of, and all those ones here are very traditional, not overly sold by that process. I didn't really want that in my architecture. It's not really floor to floor. There we go, now we're talking. It's a bit better. A bit better. Here we can feel a bit better. So I think, again, take some freedom around what is solid, what is glazing. You can see here, not quite there. But again, like I think this quite interesting one. So it introduced here a wall that wasn't there really there down below. But there are some interesting feature in this image that I like. I think I like the fact that it captures sort of the wall, the stone wall at the base of the volume to help with the topography. I like the fact that it keeps the slope direction very well. The context looks like it's, you know, it's sort of civilized. There is a bit of grass around, and then there is the forest, tropical forest at the back. I like the fact that it sort of kept my partition here. Structurally, there were like some logic behind those partitions that I struggled to find here. But maybe eventually there's some logic we could find. I like the ceiling it sort of adds here, sort of timber ceiling, quite interesting. And then, but it changed all my mullion that I liked, like the timber mullion I liked, into some, I don't know, some like, it looks like a black aluminium, which is also quite nice, very thin black aluminium, bit like sort of 70s style. very nice. I like the curtains, and you know, like it. What I found interesting is like it captured a lot back the reference image I had from this real project. I think there is the mix between a good script or a good prompt that describe it correctly and sort of this process can really lead to some interesting output. Okay, here we've got a bit of a issue going on here. Something wrong with this perspective here. Very interesting. Is at the top. Yeah, no, that's the bottom of the port. Like, so yeah, I love it. I really found it really interesting, but not really realistic. If you go to the client and try to pretend that you're not, you know about your stuff, it's not really good to show this. Here you capture the things very well, but again, not really. I don't really like this part here. Took a bit too much freedom around that area. By the way, you see, like I changed my volume around, or I changed the camera, sorry, around. But it's not live, so it will eventually go live. So I'll probably go back if I want to sort of keep some consistency. But it's not going live. So if you want it to be live, you need to click on live run. Let's see a last one before we change the settings. Nah, doesn't work quite well. So what we could do is we could increase the strength of this one, or we could also turn on Canny. So let's turn on Canny 0.6 and let's see what comes out. So you can see Canny here is capturing all the lines. So here, capture the louvers, capture the openings. But again, some things here disappear, so it will probably fill up the gap. He or she, the AI, will fill up the gap here around this area, here as well. Not too sure what's happening here. But yeah, maybe I shouldn't zoom in and out too much, otherwise I get confused. Okay, so that's it. So here, here's the image. Not quite there. The swimming pool is not quite there. But there is some understanding on the space here. I found it interesting, those little sort of volumes here that are repeating. Let's give it another go and see. So that was Canny. We could increase the depth, the strength of the depths here to see. I wouldn't go too far, but I'll just increase it to see if that change. Just to put a bit more importance to the depth. Fairly fast here with these two images. So I found that case sampler quite fast compared to other. Yeah, okay. That's interesting. Actually found that quite interesting. So it's somehow, so see how in my Revit I had like those lines here, and if I go back to Canny, it probably captures some of those lines. Not quite. So I'm not too sure how I got those lines there, but I found it quite interesting. Like you could imagine having something like a curved elements. So somewhere around here, you know, you have this curve here, and then you could imagine that, I don't know, somehow in plan there could be like just sort of little elements like this, and there could be like sort of a concrete sort of formwork here that create that effect. It would be really interesting, you know. You have those sort of elements to it. Curve here, so that could be quite an interesting idea to take out of this process. I mean, for this one here, it feels like it's more like a column things that I don't really like. I don't think it works. Or it could be maybe like, you know, sort of a portic where you just you have that feel. So maybe, you know, you have that column. Maybe it's just a series of colonnade that open up to eventually the view. So I think that could be an interesting things here to look at, you know, like people like going here, watching through there. So I think that could work. And then again, you know, we saw here this really thin column. Not too sure, you know, what they do here, but maybe there is some ideas. You know, you have the columns there, and you have that person looking through. I think this is where where you feel the columns. And then all this area at the back here could be really a nice opening, sort of outdoor, indoor space that I really like. Balustrade here is nice as well, just full glass. So you know how in my prompt and my in my prompt I was talking about, you know, like sort of aluminium balustrade. But then again, you know, I'm just questioning now that I see this. I found it quite interesting. As long as you don't have this ugly point on the slab, I think that would be quite nice. And I don't know, I'm not fully sold on those columns, but having said that, I think they are just quite interesting light element that break down the shape. Okay, so again, I think that's, again, not convinced with the water on the side, not convinced on the pool. But what I like here is the introduction of some architectural element. Back to this part here. I like this sort of those elements there that sort of break the facade and then become maybe eventually like a column. I think it's it could be quite an interesting feature to play with privacy and other feature. I think it's can be inspiring. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. So as I said, like it's all about like sort of exploration and introduction where you can find ideas, find concepts you could use, and eventually develop your model, your strategy, your design further. Just giving you some inputs. And then again, thank you for watching. If you like this video, if you want to comment and tell me if you used it in Revit, if you found it challenging, if the results I show are completely off from what you got, I want to know, because that's how I evolve the things, the process. And I also want to see that if you want to join the Discord channel, there's a link below. It's free, and then the idea is just to join and then being able to post some image or troubleshoots if it doesn't work and you get frustrating. You can just post it on Discord and then we can discuss it. I'll jump in it and help you out, or other people will do the same. And of course there's also the Patreon, so if you are willing to support the channel and want more of this content, it helps a lot to go through that and subscribe to the Patreon, and you get a lot of like sort of cool stuff, including all the files and so on, behind the scene videos. And until the next video, see you later. Ciao.